Chair, I present to you Mr. Peter Tatchell for admission to the Honorary Fellowship of Goldsmiths College.
Is that done? By the authority vested in me, I admit you to the Honorary Fellowship of Goldsmiths College, and many congratulations. I always forget to give you the certificate. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I now invite you to address us. Thank you.
Chair of Council, Warden, honorary guests, members of faculty, family and friends, and fellow graduates. I am deeply moved to receive this honorary fellowship. My gratitude to Professor Alan Downey for his most generous oration, and to Goldsmiths College for conferring on me this very prestigious award. I've got to say that I was hesitant about accepting such an honour. After all, my fellowship has not been earned by academic study. And I often have doubts about the significance of my contribution to human rights. When I look around me, there are many others more deserving than me. Nevertheless, after so many years of demonisation by the tabloid press, right-wingers, homophobes, and even by some people on the left and in the LGBTI community, this recognition is much appreciated. Thank you. I dedicate my acceptance of this honorary fellowship to the people of Palestine, dispossessed from their own land, denied statehood, and subjected to decades of Israeli occupation, annexation, bombardment, siege, and imprisonment. In all my 40 years of supporting peace with justice for the people of Palestine, I have witnessed repeated land grabs by Israel. These are still happening. I urge you to boycott Israeli products and to lobby your MP and the UK government to halt all military aid to Israel until it withdraws fully from the occupied territories and ends the siege of Gaza. This is a human rights issue. Equally, of course, there should be a boycott of Arab tyrannies like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Syria, and challenges to the human rights abuses by Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. They too must stop. I pay particular tribute to the heroic, inspirational Palestinian activists in villages like Berlin, who are resisting Israeli abuses non-violently and who are committed to a state where Jews and Arabs can live together in peace and equality, and who deplore the violent methods used by Israel to suppress their peaceful protests and their just demands. I salute the human rights defenders of the Palestinian Human Rights Center. I salute the human rights defenders of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights and B'Tselem, who challenge human rights abuses by both sides, Israel and Palestine. I walk in their shadow, humbled by their exemplary, impartial witness and defense of human rights. In terms of my own humanitarian work, I'm not special or unique. I do my bit for social justice, but so do many others. Together, through our collective efforts, despite the setbacks we've recently witnessed in Gaza, Ukraine, Syria, and Iraq, we are slowly but surely helping to make a better world, a world more just and more free. My political inspirations are people like Mohandas Gandhi, Sylvia Pankhurst, Martin Luther King, and to some extent, Malcolm X and Rosa Luxemburg. I've adapted many of their ideas and methods to the contemporary struggle for human rights and invented a few of my own. As Professor Downey indicated, I began campaigning in my hometown of Australia, in Melbourne in 1967, age 15. My first human rights campaign was against the death penalty, followed by campaigns in support of Aboriginal rights and opposition to conscription and the Australian and US war against the people of Vietnam. In 1969, on realizing that I was gay, the struggle for queer freedom became an increasing focus of my activism. After moving to London in 1971, I became an activist in the newly formed Gay Liberation Front, organising sit-ins at pubs that refused to serve queers, and organising protests against police harassment and the medical classification of homosexuality as an illness. I was roughed up and forcibly ejected when I challenged the world-famous psychologist, Professor Hans Eysenck, during a lecture in London in 1972, where he advocated electric shock aversion therapy to supposedly cure homosexuality. The following year in East Berlin, I was arrested and interrogated by the secret police, the Stasi, after staging the first gay rights protest in a communist country. I've continued in the same vein for 4 decades, with many controversial protests, such as taking over the pulpit and condemning Dr. George Carey, the then Archbishop of Canterbury, on Easter Sunday, 1988, over his support for homophobic discrimination in law. Plus, 2 attempted citizen's arrests of President Mugabe of Zimbabwe, a confrontation with Mike Tyson face-to-face over his homophobia, and the outing of 10 Church of England bishops in 1994. The bishops were outed not because they were gay, but because they were hypocrites. They colluded with the Church's anti-gay stance in public, but were gay in private. They were outed because of their homophobia and hypocrisy, not because of their homosexuality. I was widely criticized at the time. Critics said that I had no real evidence that the bishops were gay. Not true. I had evidence. I was gratified some years later when a doctor approached me after a public meeting to confirm that he knew one of the bishops was definitely gay. He told me the unnamed bishop was a patient of his and once came to his surgery with a rectal problem. The doctor told me how he asked the bishop to show him where the problem was. Dropping his trousers and pointing to his bottom, the bishop said, "It's here, just by the entrance." To which the doctor replied, "Excuse me, bishop, most of us call it the exit." Looking back on my 47 years of human rights campaigning, my advice, for what it's worth, is this. Be skeptical, question authority, be a rebel. Don't conform, and never be ordinary. Shun the mob. Shun the mob, think for yourself, be your own special creation. Remember, all human progress is the result of far-sighted people challenging orthodoxy and tradition. Thanks to innovators and reformers, often people who've taken on rich, powerful, established interests, most of us have better lives and more opportunities than our forebears. So, for the sake of yourself and future generations, be daring, show imagination, take risks, be a radical for peace, social justice, freedom, and equality. Fight against the greatest human rights violation of all, free market capitalism, which has created a world divided into rich and poor, where the 85 richest people in the world have as much wealth as the poorest 50%, where in Britain the richest 1,000 people have a combined personal wealth of £450 billion, while hundreds of millions of impoverished people in developing countries are malnourished, homeless, and without clean drinking water, where tens of millions of people die from hunger and preventable diseases. My motto is very simple. Don't accept the world as it is. Dream of what the world could be, and then help make it happen. Whoever you are, and whatever your field of endeavor, be a change maker for the upliftment of humanity. To quote my fellow sodomite and socialist Oscar Wilde, we are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Thank you.